side to the sports rep. He's George. I'm Ringer, and hope your Thanksgiving was good. George, what'd you get figured out on Thanksgiving?
Well, like I say, the first thing was you generally ask what I've been listening to. And yesterday morning at 8 o'clock, I put on the band's Last Waltz, Martin Scorsese's show. And it went, I was only going to watch part of it. And you know how that goes. And it's 2 hours long. It's utterly fantastic and set the holiday mood.
There you go.
On sports, Wednesday night, I caught bits and pieces of the Gophers, and I saw some, what I could see in terms of the highlights. There's some talent on that team, so Pitino's got some things to be thankful for.
Well, I know there are some people complaining on Twitter that you got to be kidding me. There's only college basketball games on Wednesday night, and the Gophers couldn't make it on the TV other than BTN Plus. It was a shame.
A lot of upset people.
They started off really good, and then in typical Gopher / Pitino fashion, they came out in the second half, thought they had it won, and then put a scare into everybody because the lead went from like 25 down to like in the low double digits, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if they blow this thing to Green Bay, I'm going to have a fit. But you're right. Marcus Carr had a huge game. Both Gotch had a nice game, and he's got some talent. He's got some depth.
Oh, there was 5 people in double figures, and I'm not even sure what the rebound count was. Our good friend Mr. Robbins, he seems to hang in there a little bit now. Of course, the truth there is to see what happens when the Big Ten, because I'll tell you what, they have a Goliath over in Illinois, and he is just dominating the paint right now. And I would be absolutely surprised if he stays in college one more year, because he's full-grown man, and there's some other good ones as well. So Liam has everything. All the challenges that he needs. And I take a look at all his talent, and they still have the Gophers rated 11th. And I think, Jesus, what's the rest of this conference look like?
I understand the Big Ten's good, and maybe the newspaper guys or the AP guys or whoever got the Gophers at 11. I guess, maybe, like I said, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe they don't trust these kids that they can pull it together. It's a little scary. What about Gabe Kelcher? What is the guru? Did you talk to the guru since Wednesday?
No, I haven't talked to him, but the thing with Gabe is that if he starts getting consistent with that 3, he's deadly out there. He's hard to block. He's got good size. He's got a beautiful shot. Sometimes that elbow's flapping out there like it's broke, and it's the
scary part is if he's not doing it against Wisconsin, Green Bay, he's probably not going to do it against Illinois. He's not going to do it against Wisconsin. I'm scared, George. He's making me dang nervous on what's happening. So,
well, he got 17 points, and he was still 6 for 17.
Yeah,
and so this is that's the issue that you have with this guy. But I'll tell you, when he gets sweet, you have seen him pour honey down that net, and he can do that.
Yeah.
So he's
capable. Well, they got Loyola Marymount coming up in a split doubleheader.
Can you imagine that? They're playing tonight and they're playing on Monday.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. You would expect that the Gophers would be 3-0 after Monday night, but I can't remember the last time I've ever heard of a basketball team playing somebody one day and then 2 days later playing them again.
No, I was going to ask you. You've seen a lot of sports. I've never heard of it, and
it's a great concept. I mean, why not? If Loyola
travel halfway across the country for a couple-hour game, I agree. In fact, you'll probably be seeing more of this type of thing. How else are you going to get in your non-conference play?
Well, even look at Big Ten hockey. Penn State came and played the Gophers last weekend. And then, or vice versa, whichever way they did it, and then went to Wisconsin. They played like Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, or Friday, Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just to get the games underway. And as long as you've traveled and you've gone through all the protocols and everything else, you just get to play more games. So you're going to see a lot more of this Tuesday, Wednesday business. And of course the NCHC starts on Tuesday. Bulldogs, North Dakota, and the rest of the teams in the NCHC, they're playing 2 games every day, basically for like 18 straight days. So if you're a college hockey fan, and I can't wait to see what the Dogs bring, because they basically lost their entire defensive core, and they've got some holes to fill, and they got to fill a goaltending position.
And that's a defense that served them well.
Oh, yeah, the defense was where it all started, and I'm sure Scott Sandelin does not have a bare cupboard. He would not allow that to happen, but it'll be interesting. The Bulldogs actually play, and I wrote it down somewhere. Oh, Denver on Wednesday night, so I think I may have my Wednesday evening filled, so don't anybody call me up to do anything, because I expect that game is going to be on My 9, and I'm hoping that we'll get a chance to watch that one.
Speaking of local teams, I caught a South Dakota State and West Virginia basketball game the other night. And South Dakota State has really, like, these guys are after the ball, nasty attitude type basketball players, and they give Coach Higgins everything he wanted. They kind of went apart, but I saw the next night they beat up Utah State, but South Dakota State is going to be a real fine basketball team.
Yeah, and
they were right now.
They're playing in the Pentagon, I believe, right? And so they've got some good things going on there.
They do. There was great teams coming in. Sioux Falls. I mean, who would know that?
Yeah, I kind of hope that it becomes kind of a Thanksgiving weekend tradition, because boy, that seems like a trip to Sioux Falls and watch a day of basketball, and then come and watch the Prep Bowl on a Friday and a Saturday. That sounds like the perfect Thanksgiving.
Oh, you're the master of calendars. I know that.
Nope. What's that?
You're the master of calendars. I know that.
Yeah. But don't let my wife and
no, I won't.
I said that about Thanksgiving. For heaven's sakes, we'll get beat up. Did you watch any Jalen Suggs yesterday?
I watched. You mean like football games?
Oh no, Jalen Suggs for Gonzaga college basketball.
I did actually bits and pieces. Yeah, good-looking kid. Why didn't he stay at Minnesota?
Because I don't think he liked Pitino. That's my honest opinion. He wanted. Of course,
Gonzaga. You're going to go play at Gonzaga. You're playing with the top.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the deal. I think going to Gonzaga. I think he was always a Gonzaga fan. I think that's why when he was a kid. Not that he's not a kid still, but I think it was his dream to play for Gonzaga. He got the opportunity, and he's only going to be there 1 year, because everything I saw yesterday tells me he is above the competition. And they were playing Kansas yesterday, and Kansas is number 6, and I think he ended up with 23 points and blah, 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 and played 23 minutes. Got into a little foul trouble in the first half, but in the second half, my goodness, his dribble penetration, they couldn't answer him.
Everybody else kind of standing still, and it wasn't that they weren't moving next to him, but he has got a very fluid. He's going to be very good. No doubt about it.
It's a one and done. I know on Twitter yesterday they were discussing how high does he go. Is he top 5? Is he top 10? Is he top 15? And there's a couple of people out there, I think, that, well, for lack of a better term, felt sorry that he didn't become a Gopher, like what you just said. And I feel bad that he didn't become a Gopher, but it's true. He'd only been a 1 year guy, and the guy was saying that, well, he probably won't go to the second round. And I'm like, you aren't watching things. He's in a different stratosphere with freshman players. It was obvious yesterday that it's going to be one and hello NBA. So
no, and I was talking to a friend of mine that had coached. We were watching the Detroit game simultaneously, and he says, "Look at number 77, the center. That's Ragnow. Greg was his 9th grade coach."
Okay.
And he says, "I want to tell you about this kid." I says, "Never mind. I've been following this kid since he left Minnesota and went to Arkansas." And I asked Greg, "Why did he go to Arkansas?" He says when he left high school, he says, it is my ambition to play in the NFL, and if I stay at the U, and that was 6-8 years ago, that won't happen.
Wow.
Well, now we see that that's turned around a little bit. We got 6 Gophers that are doing real well in the NFL, but he did go down for 4 years at Arkansas.
Well, the thing is, the University of Minnesota for a lot of years didn't turn out maybe necessarily a lot of perimeter people.
No.
Receivers and that, but they turned out linemen and running backs, and so that comment, I hate to say it, bugs me.
Oh, it does.
I understand. You want to go play in the SEC and everything else. I mean, I get it. You're going against the best. You get graded out. I just can't believe that if you play, if guys go to Ohio State and play in the Big Ten, I understand you're playing with the Gophers. I understand that's different. But you still get to play against the big people in the Big Ten, and so you still got to go play those teams. And so I don't know if I put a lot of merit in that statement. It sounds like maybe you want to just get the heck out of Minnesota.
Well, and that was part of it too, And I mean, remember, it's coming out of an 18-year-old kid, so
True.
He has grown. I mean, anyway, I didn't want to stop on him, but it was just an attitude that sometimes Minnesota athletes, and we've had a preponderance of football, hockey, and basketball players these days, particularly basketball players, and they scatter.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. You've got one Division I school in the state. You only have 15 spots on that team, and if you're not happy with the coach, and I think Pitino goes and does nationwide, and it's something about keeping the kids. And I can't think of where the kid is from. He was in the Minneapolis paper a few weeks ago. He said, "I want to stay home and start making Minnesota kids want to stay in Minnesota."
Yes.
And I hope that turns that way. Did you see anything else other in college basketball over the last 2 days? I know Gonzaga is playing. I think right now on TV, I'm like, geez, on a Friday morning after Thanksgiving, they start you with a college basketball game at 10 o'clock. I'm like,
Memphis and Western Kentucky are playing, and then I think that they come. The winner of this will play the winner of the West Virginia semifinals. Okay. But there is a list. If I take a look at the list that's just on today, and I won't say them all, but we have basketball. There's Auburn and Gonzaga, Virginia, San Francisco, Toledo, at Xavier. Let's see here. Navy of Maryland. Maryland's kind of a weird place these days in terms of disease. But tomorrow, where's my other list? Tomorrow, they'll have NDSU at Nebraska, which might be kind of interesting.
I think didn't NDSU or UND go down there last year and either almost pull the upset or did pull the upset over Nebraska?
Well, I think, I might have been NDSU. I think it might have been. And then South Carolina at Liberty and Marymount at the Gophers, and that's at 5 o'clock. And then on Saturday, or on Monday, I think they play at 7. Okay. But on any of the rest of these, it's just getting rolling around. And now all of a sudden you have Notre Dame at Michigan State. Well, that's tomorrow night. That's going to be worthy of watch.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can fit it in around the college football, that may or may not be played. I mean, it's
the may or may not be played thing. And and I take a look at Fleck. He's got a team, and you know what it's like to be a coach and not know who's going to play. You're going to have to play with. You're just like, is he sick? Is he ineligible? Has he done this or he done that? Or I had a parent one time tell me he couldn't come to a wrestling match because they were going to a dance ceremony.
You didn't like that answer.
Native as an ex-guy, but I didn't like that for my wrestling team.
The Gophers versus Wisconsin going to be postponed, canceled. Excuse me, for the first time in
104 years.
104 years, I think they've been playing for 120 plus. Off and on, or pretty much all the time, and there's lots of people out there screaming that this game should be played somehow, some way. It's for the Axe. I dug into a couple of Wisconsin fans the other day and said, well, the Gophers are just doing this so Wisconsin's not eligible for the Big Ten title. That way they can't go play for the top. Not that when they moved to Northwestern. Jeez. Northwestern 5-0, Wisconsin losing to them, only scoring 7 points.
The only thing we need on this team is for Northwestern to go into Ohio State and upset them. That would pretty much tip the card over. And then we don't have Rashad Bateman is not going to return.
Yeah, there's lots of open topics there. Which one you want to fire at? Because
the Bateman one I don't get that concerned about, because I think, knowing Fleck, he's got people on this team, and when you lose an athlete, even somebody as premier as Bateman, there's somebody around there that wants to be just like him. And so this is face it, this year it looks pretty much Kabawi. So we got to set for next year, and with his offense and with Tanner Morgan, he's got to have receivers. Otherwise it's just not going to work. So
yeah, I think the thing about Bateman leaving, and I think there's some people out there who are upset about it, bitter about it, and I have to say, to a fractional part of it, I'm in that group. It makes you. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, is he committed? He had gator arms a couple games ago. Didn't look like he wanted to stretch out because he was worried about the NFL. And I mean, I get it. There's millions of dollars on the line, so I get it. That's the part of me that understands what he's doing.
Right now, Ottman Bell is the best receiver. Right now, Ottman Bell's the best receiver on the Gophers team.
Yeah.
And
but you talked about it last week that Ottman Bell's got Bateman's spot, and Bateman got moved to the slot, and so
he got moved to the slot.
That's it's a different animal, and we'll see how it all plays out. But the Gopher season looks like, obviously not playing this weekend, and from everything else, like the Wisconsin and Maryland business, you would suspect that they're not going to play next week. So now that leaves you with 2 or 3 games left, depending upon where you're seated and how things go. And I guess I understand there's really going to be no bowl game probably for the Gophers, depending upon how things go. So, I mean, I get it. I understand that there's only so many opportunities left, and you start playing for the next level, and you take yourself out of that COVID situation of getting COVID, with it seeming to be running rampant on the team. So, like I said, I get it, but it's disappointing in that idea. But I do have to say, the fact that Wisconsin gets nicked out of this situation, yeah, for all you Badger fans out there, I know what you're thinking, but it's almost comical. It's almost too good to be true.
Almost too good to be true. This. Hey, can you imagine being a professional gambler and trying to make your life living on this? It's pretty extreme. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, and then you go back to last weekend, and you opened up Ohio State's the box for Ohio State, and beating Ohio State, and I texted you. I think I said last week on the show that Indiana would stick in for a quarter and a half, and man, it got to halftime, and I'm like, I should have went and bet on this.
And they kept coming back.
So I turned the channel off, or I turned the TV off, and I thought, about 2:20, I thought, well, maybe I should check to see how Indiana's doing, how bad it's gotten. It was almost the opposite way. I thought Indiana might pull it out, and I think if Indiana would have scored at the end to make it 42-41, they'd have gone for 2.
Yes, they would have.
Right now, don't go to overtime. Beat them right now when you got the chance, and make it just one play. And man, Ohio State is on the verge. They got ranked in the number 4 in the poll, the big poll, and I think some people were disappointed that they were up that high, that they should have been out of the number. But I think people have to remember that Indiana, I know Indiana's not your typical football program, but they've got a pretty good team, and so the fact that they had to hang on and win at home Ohio State, I don't think leads to anything that should make the committee nervous, that if they picked Ohio State, they don't have one of the top 4 teams.
If it's not, it's real close. And I'll tell you, Clemson's been beat. And Notre Dame, they always take it to the top limit, and then all of a sudden it seems to kind of ink. Well, and so we'll see what happens with them.
that begs the question, George, what happens when they play North Carolina today? Because by the time people see this, Notre Dame might be out of the ranks of the undefeated. I mean,
Notre
North
Dame
Carolina could pull it off.
Notre Dame, they can. North Carolina has got a good team, and they're in the mix for their conference championship. Notre Dame is coming. I mean, they've been high for a long time. They beat national champions. I mean, they've done this whole thing. No, I think North Carolina is primed for an upset, and they're going to give Notre Dame a good shot. At 2:30 this afternoon, I will be watching that one.
Yeah, I suspect that'll have to be on the radar. What about Dabo Sweeney's comments last weekend about Florida State?
Dabo is he gets a little intense, in case you haven't noticed, and and they were just a few hours away from going to the stadium when they found this, and so I would imagine by that time Dabo was primed and pumped, and so and the first thing he's going to say was, and I used to hear this in wrestling all the time, they're dodging us, they don't want to play us, and it's just like and in these days. I'm not sure you can use COVID-19 as a very good excuse, but it is a fact.
Well, and that's, like I said, it's almost like the Wisconsin-Minnesota thing, going back to that. Florida State's going, well, geez, we could play Clemson, but geez, if we didn't, that might hurt their ranking. And, we want the ACC to be successful, but if we can nick Clemson and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's the conspiracy theorist in me. It's fun to play, and Dabo freaking out, having a conniption about it.
Well, one thing, they don't like each other all that well.
Well,
and,
yeah.
When they're competing,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I just, Southern football is such a way of life down there. And when you're talking about, the Auburns and the Clemsons and the Georgias and the list goes on, and they're all, they all have the best tailgates, they all drink the best bourbon, and they all play the best football.
Yeah.
So it's quite a deal, no doubt about it. So, we only have one school, the only one is Madison, and then we don't have, I got to go to Omaha to see. So we don't have a lot of those Division I schools. There's 6 of them within driving distance.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So, yeah, I think the thing about, usually this weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, today would be Prep Bowl. I'd be sitting at US Bank Stadium already enjoying the 9-man game would be underway and everything else. And, of course, this weekend also was, the big college football, the rivalry weekend, the Egg Bowl, the Iron Bowl, the blank bowl, whatever you want to put in there, where these rivalry teams play. And some of them are still playing this weekend, Oregon versus Oregon State. We can't use the term that they used to call for it, so I won't even bring it up. And that's great. But you understand that this has always been a big weekend, and just like everything else in 2020, things kind of got thrown into the mix, and everything's been kind of slid around and moved around. But like I said earlier, college basketball at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, that's a good day. That's a good day.
And it's been running that way all week. My eyes are blurry by 10 o'clock at night. But I want to bring up one more college football team, and that's the Carolina Coast Chanticleers.
Okay.
I love that name, and they're ranked number 20th in the nation. And they have really good speed. And these guys, as like one analyst was saying, they think they can win, and they think they can win every time they go out. And that's an attitude that comes from the coach.
Oh, and I think the thing is, what Central Florida did last year, and what some of these other teams have done over the last couple of years with the right. Well, look what the Gophers did last year. I think with the right mix. These teams think that, they can. They give us our shot at the big boys. We'll take our one game shot and whatever else. So when you said you had one college football, I thought you were going to talk about the Black Knights and talk about their big comeback last weekend. But
the Black Knights came back and they won by 1 point, and it was luck. And the reason that I wasn't watching the Ohio State Indiana game was I was watching Army. And it was a great football game, just a great college football game. It's like one of the things they beat their heads in to sing second. And they're looking forward to the 12th of December. I think they might have, I'm not sure they have any more games before the 12th.
Okay.
And that'll be the Army-Navy game, and it should be a dandy. Now, whether or not, because, see, the Air Force game was postponed, whether or not they can fit that in, and they might be able to next week.
Okay.
I sure hope so. Yeah, those service teams are really something.
Yeah.
And, of course, triple option teams, I kind of like that.
We know you do, George. We know
Yes.
if you're a football purist, you got to. So we're 30 minutes into the show, and we haven't brought up the Vikings from last weekend.
I'd like to talk a little bit about some football that I saw yesterday.
Boy, that first game was horrible football. Horrible. Nearly unwatchable.
Yeah.
Almost unwatchable. I don't. Somebody put out on Twitter. Tell me why do they make us suffer and watch the thing Detroit on Thanksgiving every year? I think the point is sometime soon, Detroit's got to get over the proverbial hump and make and be a team that people want to watch at 11:30 on Thanksgiving Day, because I've gotten to the point where, they didn't score a point last week, and J.J. Watt came out and intercepted a ball, and all of a sudden they just crumbled. I don't know.
I tell you, it was two things that happened. Number one, Texas defense played really, really well. Number two, Detroit's defense played very, very badly. And Deshaun Wilson got what? He got four touchdown passes. He's got 15 touchdown passes, Tim, and no interceptions this year. That's leading the league. Well, your quarterback offense, they do real well when you get stats like that.
Yeah.
So, he really kind of took apart that Detroit secondary, as I saw, and they were getting no rush from the line at all. And that's where kind of I was embarrassed.
No Everson Griffin sightings yesterday?
No Everson Griffin sightings. Not that I could.
So did you watch the second game? Because after Dallas beat Minnesota, I thought,
I found that was a little weird. Did you see something? You go, a fake punt in your own, in your own 10-yard line. It's just whoever called that.
Well, Mike McCarthy
I think Mike McCarthy, the only reason that he's not fired is that Jones can't afford to have two coaching staffs on at one time. But the play calling was just incredible for Dallas.
I wasn't watching the game at that point. I don't even know what we were doing. We might have been eating supper or something, and my phone just blows up with the Twitter feed, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, McCarthy should be fired now, blah, blah, blah. Don't even wait for the game to be over, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, my gosh, what did he do? And I saw the play call, and, I go back to Jim Wacker. I think in the 4 or 5 years that Jim Wacker was the head Gopher football coach, I think they fake punted inside their own 20-yard line like 4 times inside their own 20. If you add out to like their own 40, I think it was like 7 or 8 times. Somebody can go back and check me on that. But it was something that you just expected that he was going to do in the game. You and I talked with Coach Nordquist here last week, and we talked about not going for it on your own territory. Inside the 50-yard line, you punt the football. And I think
got that from Coach Milosky.
I think back to the year that I was head coach and you were one of my assistants, and we were playing, I think, Crosby Ironton. Here, during the regular season, we had first series of the game, we had fourth and about a foot at our own 29 2/3 yard line. And I looked over at you, I think, and I went, we're going for it. And you're like, okay, we're going for it. And we made it by about 4 inches. And there was a certain former head coach at that time who became the head coach and now is a former head coach again. And he just looked me in the eye and said, what were you thinking? And I said, I was thinking we could get it. We have a running team. We can get a foot. If we can't get a foot, we don't deserve to win. And he said,
no.
You can't win the game in the first quarter, but you can lose the game in the first quarter. And I've always sat with that. I've always lived by that credo. I remember in 04 or 05, must have been 04 because Eric Moe was still on the team, and him and Ty, we needed about 6 inches in our own territory. And they convinced Stuart that we should go for it. And he broke his own rule because he believed in those guys, and why not? They both played college football, and we ended up not making it. And it almost ended up being a disastrous decision. And you just don't do those things. And considering that Dallas was down by only 4 points at the time and ended up losing by 25.
Yeah, and that's where it fell apart. And on top of that, when you see the play, it looked like something that my C team would screw up. I mean, it was that bad. And that's where you just see it and you just thought, Jones has to be just pulling his hair out if he has any left, because he had to sit there and watch that. But that was embarrassing on Thanksgiving Day. The rest of the league watching, Of
course, if he makes it, he's a hero, man. Has he got guts? Has he got, he's just, oh my, he would be thought of as a hero because he took the chance. And, the scary part about that whole thing is he's now, they're 3-8 on the year?
Yeah.
3-8. And they're only one game out of the division lead. So,
well, yeah, but that was going to take a look. That division is the worst division in the history of football.
But you're only a game out. You could still go to the playoffs, be a horrible team, and you might make the playoffs. And there's just something there's something wrong with that. Seriously, a 6-10 team or a 6-9-1 team is going to make the playoffs.
That's going to happen.
Anyway, it's scary. So you glossed over the Vikings and Dallas. You want to talk about horrible defenses or defensive efforts?
Oh no, that was I had to turn it off. I mean, I really I couldn't watch it anymore. And it's and then you start hearing some of the grumbling about, now you see that people are saying, Jefferson should get the light as opposed to Thielen, and this one should do that over that one. And the key of playing football or any other sport is to make your teammates look good. You will look good if you do that. And I think this year, Jefferson's role was to, make Thielen look good. Make them respect him and come into his own. No doubt he's an incredible talent.
We understand that you got to have two receivers. Yeah. Otherwise, they're going to double somebody, play cover over the top, and things aren't going to go good. One thing I got to say about that Dallas game, and I don't know if I was just watching more intently or if I was whatever, but there were just some slobber knocker hits that Delvin Cook put on and took in that game. I know maybe they just had the microphone turned up, but the pad popping sounds of those hits were thunderous. Thielen getting his hand smashed on that one catch and then coming back and catching with the same hand, one-handed in the end zone. There were some amazing plays. There were some horrible plays. The unfortunate part about that is the Vikings lost to a team that they shouldn't lose to, and they lost. They lose to Seattle a month and a half or so ago in a game that they shouldn't have lost. And so you look at this
and a considerably better team than Dallas.
Yes. And they're 4-6, and we're saying, well, geez, they could be 6-4, or they could be 7-3. And I'm kind of like, God. And of course, we know that the teams in the NFL are close, and they are only a play or two apart, a lot of them, and it'll drive you crazy if you let it. But the Vikings, you shouldn't lose at home to Dallas. It just shouldn't happen.
No, and their record would be so much better right now. I mean, if they'd have picked up that game and they let out the Bears they went to Green Bay and beat them in Green Bay. So they're worthy of this respect. But they're going to just have to pick the pace up. And I noticed Mike Zimmer is getting more intense on the sideline, and that's got to tell you something, because generally he was a pretty laid back coach. Especially during game time.
Tells me he knows his job is on the line.
That's what he does.
Tells me he knows his job is on the line.
And I tell you, as long as we're going there, there's a game that's going to be played on Sunday, Kansas City and Tampa Bay. And now Tampa Bay, after that last loss, their coach is taking a beating because he's publicly throwing his players under the bus and not doing it in private and doing any of the rest of that. And so we find out this was the guy that they threw out of Pittsburgh a couple years ago for basically doing the same thing. And so, he's saying that Tom Brady doesn't recognize secondaries. No, Tom Brady sees secondaries in his sleep. It's just, and Tampa Bay
I'm glad you brought up Tom Brady because Tom's got a cult following, and he's also got people who would love to see him lose every week, and that would make them happy. And after they lost last week, he didn't go over and shake the other quarterback's hand.
Yeah, that was poor.
But every other game when he wins, he makes sure he goes and shakes their hands. And so I understand being competitive, and I understand you can use COVID to your benefit to say, well, I didn't want to expose myself. But when you're winning and you go over and shake the other quarterback, I don't know. So Tom's making me upset. I don't like some of the things that Tom does. You can call it competitive, but I'll look at it this way. I look at Aaron Rodgers last week. They lost the game to Indianapolis, to the Colts. That I almost called them the Baltimore Colts. Colts still. That's 36 years later, and I'm still almost doing it. Green Bay shouldn't have lost that game. Period. I that's how I feel about it. And yet, when he went over there after the game, and him and what's his face?
Rivers.
Thank you, Philip Rivers. Man, they had like a 12-minute conversation about, whatever they were talking about. And to me, you can be mad, but you gotta man up when you lose the game or whatever. You pony up and say, hey, nice job to the other guy. You don't go pouting off the football field. And so Tom Brady can go take a flying leap at this point, unless he's going to grow up.
Well, I think that might be indicative of the whole team situation right now, and that to me is kind of a coach's thing. He has to. That's what he has to control, including your all-star super quarterback. But I mean, who's a better quarterback, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes? We will see that on Sunday.
I think I'd like to answer that question now, and I wouldn't even hesitate. I'm telling you, Patrick Mahomes is a more athletic quarterback. He may not be as cerebral as Tom, but he's getting there. Patrick Mahomes is the real deal.
Yeah, I think he's quite capable of someday being called the best that ever played the game.
Very good possibility.
He has magic back there that I don't see anywhere else. Although Deshaun Watson sure give it a look the other day, and but like you say, what were you playing against? So you really don't know.
So what about your man Lamar?
Well, Lamar is playing pretty well too, but he's sick. I think he's sick. Yeah.
They were supposed to play Pittsburgh on Thanksgiving night, and they postponed it to Sunday. And what did I hear this morning? 15 people within the Ravens organization have tested positive. I don't see that Pittsburgh game getting played on.
That's not going to happen
on Sunday. This is going to become a Wednesday night Fox CBS extravaganza in the middle of the week, like they were doing earlier in the year to get this game in, so that Baltimore can have enough.
This would have been a fine game, and
it's going to be
no
a fine
two ways
game.
about it. People have been waiting for it.
Yeah.
But if I were the owner of the Steelers, I wouldn't throw my team out there. They're what are they, 10-0 or
10-0? Yeah, I think that's the big thing, and like I said, a marquee game in the middle of the week suits the NFL and CBS or Fox just fine. They've got a bunch of Thursday night duds, Fox and whatever else, all through the year so far. The Thursday night games have been tough and to watch. And so if they can get that game in the middle of the week, I think the NFL would gladly take that. And so, what about Teddy Bridgewater coming back to play the Vikes or playing the Vikes?
Teddy Bridgewater, I was always a Teddy Bridgewater fan. Yeah. And last year when he went out when he held together the New Orleans Saints and did it with that, because Bridgewater in a lot of ways is just like these young athletic quarterbacks. He could move, he could throw. In fact, people were wondering if he's moving too much, and and throwing. But no, I'm all for watching Teddy Bridgewater play. And if there's somebody out there, if you think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to play the Vikings with vengeance in his heart, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of time for that. But he'd be smiling if he could beat him up.
Yeah, obviously, and I think that's the thing. The Vikings had to make a choice about where they were going, whether they were going to wait for Teddy to be back or ever come back.
Oh, that was an incredible injury he had.
They made a business decision, and I think they made the right decision. I don't think it was anything personal. It was just something that the Vikings thought that they were on the edge of something pretty good.
Well, they hung on to him for like 4 years.
Yeah. So that the fact that Teddy Bridgewater is doing the things that he's doing should give your buddy Joe Burrow some pause and some light at the end of the tunnel after what happened to him last Sunday. Yeah,
I'm not quite sure just exactly what happened. But from what I understand, this injury is fairly serious.
Yeah.
And
it didn't sound like it was as possibly life-threatening as Teddy or leg-threatening. Yeah. Life-threatening is a little bit too heavy. But yeah, they're talking that he may not even be ready to play next season for Cincinnati with the structural damage, not just the tear of 2 ligaments, but everything else that they did. And I haven't seen the play, and I sure hope to heck that I don't, because I don't need to see anything like that. I'm not into that kind of stuff. And so I wish Joe the best. He was having a pretty good year for a team that wasn't very good or isn't very good, or however you want to put that. And the fact that he may not play in 2021 gives, like I said, but the Teddy Bridgewater and his ability to be able to come back tells Joe, hey, you've got a chance to shoot for 2022 and be ready to go. Plus,
well, like I say a lot,
most of Joe's contract's guaranteed, so
yeah,
he's okay.
Well, he'll do all right. But it's one of the things where you got to be a real hardy, tough individual, and I could put it another way, to pull your socks up in that league.
Yeah.
And you're watching, I mean, Drew Brees getting hit by that truck the other day, and they were finding busted ribs on him a week later. It's and a collapsed lung. I mean,
think. I don't even know how to put my mind around the fact that he got 11 broken ribs. I mean, you've only got 24.
Yeah.
You got half of them, nearly half of them broke. And he finished the half and then came out and basically said, I can't do it. Well, I understand why.
I can understand why he couldn't do it too. And with a collapsed lung bruise, I mean, he took a kicking, but there's nobody that's gonna convince me he's not an incredibly courageous guy. He is just tough as nails. Take that hit at that age.
Yeah. Well, like I said, how much does the age factor play into that? I mean, and I don't know, but say he's 25, is the injury the same? The fact that he's 42 or 43 or however old he is, would he get injured like that at 25? I don't know if anybody can answer that question, but yeah. And of course, then the people who were saying quarterbacks shouldn't get hit and everything else, and I'm like, holy smokes, you got to play football. You got to let the guys do what they do.
You put the red shirt on for practice. For the rest of the time, he's just like everybody else.
Yeah. So.
And and I like to protect them when they would run that triple option and the tight end would continually hit the quarterback, whether he had the ball, and the coach would say, drill him. How hard? As hard as you can. Well, that to me, it took a little bit away from the game, and I'd say, why don't you play him and see if he pitches the ball and then go after the ball?
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of a little bit different deal. Now, hey, I want to just stop for a second. Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is something I kind of picked up. This is in the Tribune today. They are negotiating right now of combining all the statistics from the old Negro Leagues and Major League Baseball. And they would include, at this point, almost 3,500 players that played in the old Negro Leagues to make them eligible for – I mean, there's no reason for Josh Gibson not to be in the Hall of Fame.
No,
I'm sure Satchel Paige is, but a lot of those guys never really got to the major league level to get that. And those are some fine ball players.
Yeah, I read the same article this morning, and my initial reaction was, well, if they didn't play in the American League or the National League, and this is what my thought process was, why would you bring those records in? Well, then if you read the article, the article talks about that they brought in there were three or four other leagues, that have theirs also that are considered major league records that weren't the National League or the American League. And, you talk about the dead ball era and all the rest of the stuff. And as I read the article, I've been persuaded. I read the facts. I'm now able to make my own opinion on it. Yeah, I think, why not? These guys, some people say, well, it wasn't against major league pitching. And I'm like, there were major league
There were major league pitchers all over.
Yeah, there were major league level players all over the Negro League. So I agree. This is and it's all about comparing and discussing. And the fact that Ted Williams isn't going to be in the top 10 in average anymore, does that make Ted Williams any less of a great baseball player? Heck no.
No.
Babe Ruth's going to get moved out of the top 10 in batting average for his lifetime. Does that make Babe Ruth any less of a baseball player?
No.
Heck no. It's just that we're going to recognize some of these other guys who really did some fabulous things. And I'm all for it. Let her rip.
I saw an interview with Bucky O'Neill, one of the great all-time Negro Leaguers, and he said if you went to a ball game, you saw a ball game. You went to a Negro League game, you saw a ball game, you were entertained. And he says, everybody had fun there. The crowd had fun, the players had fun. There would be all kinds. It wasn't schmuck baseball, but it would be like a real fast runner. He'd take bets that he could make it to third. And Jackie Robinson could. And in fact, they said Jackie Robinson caused more runs being scored at home than anybody because the pitcher was constantly looking to see what base he was going to steal next. So, you see a different attitude and different spirit in their game. And not that Major League didn't have some great ball players. I know they did. But I think it's good that they're included in this.
Yeah, I think, I said, it isn't hurting anything, and it's making these ball players more prolific. People will read the books or read the stats and say, oh, who's this? And they'll investigate where they played. And so as I read the article and they talked about, what did they say, like 18 years? These guys have been working on this. They were looking through old newspapers and making, double checking stats that were in newspapers and everything else. And I'm like, I understand what that's like.
There's been a couple of books put out from these guys doing it, and they talked about when they started researching this, they had no idea what they were going to get into and how often they were shocked.
Yeah. So it's all good stuff. I'm all for it. We've got to talk a little soccer, George.
Yes, we do.
We got to start with the Loons, who got their first ever playoff win on Tuesday night, I think it was. And nice 3-0 win at home, and they looked like the better team. I think they were the better team. I think they are the better team. So they get to play down at Kansas City on Wednesday night, and it's someplace I've actually got to watch the Loons there. The Loons have never played well in Kansas City. Kansas City is the #1 seed, and I'm hoping that the Loons will that Minnesota United will pull things together and get a win and get to the Western Conference Finals. I think.
How Major League Soccer handling the COVID circumstance?
The Loons, Minnesota United here, they had to cancel like 2 or 3 games, I think, just towards the end of the season. 2 games, I think, because they lost because they had so many issues with players having COVID. So MLS took care of business pretty well, and they just had to take a break because all the nations were playing against each other to try to qualify for the next World Cup. So there was like a 2-week leg where there were no games, and they came back and started the playoffs. And so they're already thinking to next year how they're going to get around the Olympics and all this other stuff that's supposed to be coming up. And it's so. Like I said, I know there's not a lot of people who probably watch us that are soccer fans, and I'll bring up Jay Bartkowski. I didn't realize that Jay Bartkowski was a Premier League soccer watcher. I didn't realize that he was, and that's what he said on Saturday mornings before college football starts. I watch the Premier League, and I'm like, I haven't invested myself into that.
They don't even call it soccer; they call it football.
Those fools. They don't know what football is anyway.
What?
So, and of course, we got to talk about Diego Maradona.
We can talk about Diego. What do you think?
The hand of God goal. You know, when I was small, when I was young, the NASL, the North American Soccer League, was just coming kind of into its own. And of course, Minnesota had the Minnesota Kicks. And they were pretty doggone good. And, of course, Pele came to New York and made the Cosmos a big deal. And that was my first real to soccer, my introduction to soccer.
For all of us.
And then, of course, the North American Soccer League kind of faded into the background. The Kicks went away and everything else. The Tampa Bay Rowdies. Anyway, in 1986, NBC shows the championship for World Cup soccer, and Diego Maradona is running all over the place. This little short guy who was a little plump, but the son of a gun could kick a soccer ball and make it do things that other people couldn't do. And of course, he scores a goal on what they called the hand of God play, where he jumped up and it looked like it hit his head, but dang it, his hand.
Nah, he punched it.
was right there, and all of a sudden it goes in the net. And anyway, Argentina wins the World Cup, and Diego Maradona went on to win many titles in Italy and whatever else.
And Argentina right now is going through a mourning phase that is incredible. They don't have a lot of soccer gods down there, or maybe they do, but boy, when they lose them, that is an emotional level.
Well, and Maradona liked to have a good time.
He did.
And he had been a coach, and only 60 years old, and I think
that was the problem. He's so young.
60's too young, and of course they say he died of a heart attack. Went into the hospital almost a month ago. Wasn't feeling good at a soccer match and went in. And like I said,
never came out.
Pele, I think, said it best. I something along the lines that we lost one of the greats, and I lost a friend. And so it's you play hard, you live hard, and it seems like every week we end the show with this obituary segment, which is I'm hoping one week, George, we're not going to have this, but. Goodness
well, unfortunately, gracious. I got another name to toss at you, and that's John Hankinson. Former quarterback from the University of Minnesota in 64 and 65, and was a very competent quarterback. He had all kinds of Gopher records, but what he was most famous for is raising three boys to play on the Gopher hockey team, and I guess he was just an enamored character, 77 years old. But I guess that they all went to Edina Morningside is where he came from. The old Edina Morningside School, 56 or 57. But he was a very fine quarterback and a good Minnesota man.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to admit I didn't know much about him, and so the article in the paper the other day was very informative, very good. I always enjoy learning about those Minnesota guys who served Minnesota well, and it seemed he was able to do that.
He was the quarterback at the Gophers when I was in high school, so they would give the Sports Peach, the pink sports page from the Minneapolis Tribune, and Harkinson would be all over the place. So, anyway, he had a good life.
What else do we got?
I'm looking through.
What do you got?
I'm looking through my notes here. I'm just let me see. Iowa State and Texas on right now. Notre Dame at North Carolina on at 2:30. Nebraska and Iowa, just because Iowa is going to beat the heck out of them, and Oregon State tonight. Let me see.
You're just going to put them on in succession, and that's the deal. That's the way it's going to be, huh?
That's kind of the way it's going to be. But I take a look at.
I got some papers to correct. You want me to bring a set of papers over so you?
No. You wait till tomorrow, because at 11 o'clock, Penn State plays Michigan.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we'll talk about coaches whose jobs are on the line.
Is there any way that could end in a tie? Or both of them lose? Is that possible?
Yes.
I'd like to see both of them lose. That would be just perfect. So
you are a Big Tenner. There's no two ways about it.
So, yeah.
Pittsburgh at Clemson. That should be all right. And of course, at 2:30, Northwestern's at Michigan State, and NDSU is at Nebraska. It's basketball.
Yeah.
Which they're playing. And don't forget Loyola Marymount tomorrow night. That's kind of all the limits I have. I can go back and talk about the Gophers a little bit, but I'm not sure we can do that until after the game tomorrow night and on Monday. We'll have a better evaluation.
We'll have something to talk about next week that way.
We got lots to talk about. There's going to be sports this week, buddy.
Oh, we'll have plenty to talk about. Let's hope that we're talking about a Viking win and a couple of Gopher wins for next week. So.
Any local sports you're going to bring up?
No, because everything's shut down. It's kind of quiet. Nobody's practicing. The Bronco hockey team would have actually been playing their first game a week from today. It's Friday today. They'd have actually been playing their first game on Friday, I think, against Evelyn Gilbert. We'd have gotten the basketball and the hockey seasons started next Friday for the Broncos and the LBF Vikings and everybody else. But we'll have to probably wait until after the new year for that. And they'll probably slam jam. They told them they were only going to be able to play 2 games a week. We'll see if the Minnesota State High School League holds themselves to that and, maybe lets them play a third game if they play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday or something, not playing on consecutive days. They'll find some way. The Minnesota Coaches Association will put their foot down and say, we got to have more than 12 games. We just can't get enough whatever in 12 games. Or 14 games, that just won't be enough. But
I did see the high school league did lower the cost of the smaller schools to participate in the league. On the other hand, it's going to be a long time before the schools are able to make that up and before the high school league can make that up. This is
I think the big thing right now, and I understand everybody, all the small schools are freaking out. Here's the thing. The state legislature will figure this out because
they're going to have
Minnesota State High School League gets not a lot of their money, but gets some of their money through the legislature, and the legislature kind of cut things back. And of course, expenses are going up, so they had to find they're losing all the TV money, so they had to find a way, and they passed it on to the schools, and so the schools are either going to ask for more money, and the legislature is going to give it to them, or the legislature will give more money to the state high school league in the next session. I really believe that's going to happen one way or another. The formula for schools is either going to go up so they can pay the Minnesota State High School League their dues, or the legislature is going to give more money to the state high school league, which is what I think is going to happen. Is they're going to do it that way. The state legislature will come through with some sort of funding to make the state high school league more viable, more high school athletics affects a lot of people, and I know some people out there would say, well, I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for high school athletics, and I'd be like, so you don't want your money to pay to make kids' lives better? Is that what you're saying? Of course, there's people out there who don't think we should have public education. We shouldn't be putting money into public school. We should let everybody pay for themselves and figure it out from there. And
the last time this school passed a referendum, it was on account of they needed money to repair the arena.
Yeah.
And so if you tell them no high school hockey tournament, ooh, they start seeing what that is all about. And when you start taking a look at, as an educator, you know how many thousands of kids are benefiting from these sports programs. If I didn't think they were, I'd have left them a long time ago. On top of that, and I've had a number of discussions about true athletes that, hey, if your sports program does not include education, it's worthless to me. You've got to have that component, and that's why you're doing this. So, people say, do kids learn from sports? Oh boy, do they ever.
Yeah, like I said, I think they'll find a way to get it figured out and taken care of, and like I said, one way or another, the money's coming from the legislature to out of taxes to pay for the schools. The schools had to bump up their stuff. Somehow, it's all going to come balanced out in the end. And
let's get some vaccines so we can party again. That's what I want.
Let's get a vaccine out there. Let's get those out there so people can get back and do the things that they enjoy doing. I agree.
That's right.
Thanks everybody for watching.
Take care, pal. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Same to you.